As Eric and Shelley Martin unwind on their porch after a long day, the chilly Maine air carries no warning of the terror about to unfold. In moments, their quiet evening will spiral into a night of unimaginable terror, forever remembered as the Palmyra Wolves incident. Like it or not, in 2005, life was changing for the Martin family. Eric, Shelley, and their teenage daughter, Chelsea, have to move. An accident at work blew out several of the discs in Eric's back, leaving him disabled. So they pack up their stuff and move to Palmyra, Maine, where Shelley knew some people who helped her find a job that was close enough to home for her to do both. They find an old farmhouse with lots of land in the middle of nowhere they can rent for a while until they can find something more permanent. The place is beautiful, surrounded by dense forest, a perfect place for Eric to spend some time partaking in his favorite hobby, hunting. He came from a family of hunters and had been hunting his whole life, and he had a decent collection of guns to prove it. As Eric starts bringing his gun collection into the house, Shelley says, "I don't think so. I don't want guns in the house around the kids." So Eric says, fine. But if he can't keep them with him locked up in the house, he doesn't want to just leave them sitting in the barn. Eric and Shelley also have a son, Sean, who lives on his own. So Sean swings by and helps Eric build a big, sturdy wooden box that is lockable to keep them in so they can be secure out there instead. They settle in and life is good. Over the course of the next year or so, Eric and Shelley develop a habit of ending their days over a cup of coffee together out on their front porch. Just a nice, quiet way to stay connected. One night, around the first week of May 2006, they're both out there taking in the night air, drinking their coffee. Now, when they look out from their porch, there's a little bit of a yard, their gravel road, a little bit of a field area, and then the forest starts beyond that. So as they're looking out at all of this, they see a light in the forest beyond the field. It's kind of a pulsating light, on and off, like something's breathing in and out. And at first they thought, flashlights? Poachers maybe? So they wait a few minutes to see if anyone comes out of the woodline, but there's nothing but the lights. Their son Sean is there that night, so Eric yells to Sean to come out and take a look. Sean doesn't know what it is either, but they all agree that something about this light just isn't right. So Eric and Sean decide to grab some flashlights and head out there to see what's going on. But as they approach the woods, the lights go out, and they notice that everything is dead quiet. Eric yells into the woods, "Hey, this is private property. No hunting allowed. You better just get out of here." And they wait to hear some kind of response, but they don't see or hear anything. So the two of them head into the trees to where they thought the light had been coming from. Eric decides they should split up with the hope that Sean might be able to sneak up on whoever is out there. Sean turns his flashlight off to see if maybe he can be even stealthier about it. Eric doesn't know why, but there's something about this whole situation that is freaking him out with a level of fear he's never felt in any hunting situation he has ever been in. As Eric walks, with every snap of a branch under his feet echoing in the silence, he can feel something is out there with him. Something is off to his left, the opposite side that Sean is on. He stops to listen, but doesn't hear anything. Whatever is out there with him just vanishes. When Eric and Sean join back up, neither of them has seen or heard anything except each other. The ground all around them is some pretty tall grass, and as they're walking, they're looking for any signs that they can find of anyone having been there. But the grass is totally pristine, no footprints or any other signs that anyone has been there. So they finally give up and head back to the house. And they all just chalk it up as just some weird, unexplainable event. A couple of weeks later, Chelsea is in the woods taking a walk with her then boyfriend, now husband, Nathan. The two have been seeing each other for about 6 months. Nathan just joined the army and is getting ready to ship out for a while, so the two are trying to jam in every minute of quality time they can. So they're out in the woods with the two family dogs off leash so they can get some exercise, when the dogs pick up a scent and take off. Chelsea and Nathan call after them, but they are way too fixated on this smell and just keep going. When they finally do catch up to the dogs, they find them rooting around in the ground next to this perfectly round hole that looks almost like the opening to a den or something made out of sticks and dirt. Whatever it is, something made it. It's not just some weird natural anomaly. Nathan gets down on the ground to take a peek inside. He can't see anything, but he hears what sounds to him like a very low growl. Nathan stands up and says, "Time to go," which is just fine with Chelsea because just looking at it gives her the creeps. They get the dogs back on their leashes and leave. Just a few days after that, more specifically Memorial Day weekend, Eric and Shelley are out on the porch around 10:30 at night, enjoying their coffee as usual, when they notice there's no sound. And it's a pretty dark, chilly, misty night. They can't see very far into the field, much less into the trees. And from the darkness, they hear a rustling noise, but they can't tell what it is. Eric gets a really bad feeling in his gut. Something's not right. They are in danger. He grabs Shelley by the arm and says, "Come on, we gotta go in." Shelley says, "Why? It's such a nice night." Shelley has this super bright flashlight that she turns on and shines out into the field in front of them. At the end of that beam, they see the reflection of 3 sets of yellow-green eyes staring back at them. And she's seen enough deer in her life to know these are not deer.
Not to be confused with the not deer.
It looked as if these creatures had been ninja crawling from the woods across the road right toward their front porch. And when Shelley busted them with her spotlight, her educated guess that these are not deer is confirmed when they stand up on 2 legs and book it to the right until they get to the other side of a pond about 100 feet from the house. These things stand at about 7 feet tall. They have short fur all over, one of them light brown and the other 2 really dark brown, except the hair on their heads, which was longer and kind of sticking out all over, not matted but unkempt and wild. Their ears start at the jawline and go up over the tops of their heads, with a muzzle of a dog but wider and rounded. And they have short, stumpy tails, like less than a foot long. Once they can no longer see them on the other side of the pond, Shelley swings her flashlight back to the front yard, and there are 2 more of them sneaking up and are only about 20 feet away. Once they too are busted, they also stand up from being on all fours and take off running on their hind legs in the same direction the first 3 did. Their hind legs are shaped like a dog's, but the thigh area is much thicker, more like a kangaroo. And the feet are a bit odd. They have a very long arch and a heel like a human, but when they walk, it's like they're walking more on their toes, which aren't really toes, more like dog paws, complete with really long claws that shine in the light, wet from the dewy ground. That is enough for Eric and Shelley, who turn around and scramble into the house, slam the door shut, and sink to the floor. Shelley still has her flashlight, so she turns around and starts shining it out the window. She wants to see these things again. She has to know what she's looking at. Eric pulls her back down to the floor. He doesn't want to give these things any reason whatsoever to come into the house. So she gets up and starts running around the house, closing every open window. About the same time, she realizes that she hasn't heard the dogs in a while. So while she's closing windows, she's calling for them as well. But the dogs are nowhere to be found, which is really weird. These are well-trained hunting dogs that always come when they're called. As she gets close to the laundry room, she hears another noise and she thinks, holy crap, is there already one of these things in the house? So she slowly goes into the laundry room to close the window in there and finds their 2 dogs huddled up next to one another on the floor next to the dryer, whining and shaking, obviously aware that something bad is going down outside. Then Shelley remembers Chelsea, who's asleep in her room upstairs. So Shelley runs up into her room and shakes her to wake her up and says, you gotta see this. Like most sleeping teenagers, Chelsea's none too happy about being so unceremoniously pulled out of bed, but follows her mom to the windows in her room. Her windows overlook the part of the yard between the pond and the house. Shelley shines her flashlight out the window, and there they are. They've moved closer to the house and are just standing on 2 legs, hanging out, staring right back at Shelley in no apparent hurry to leave. Shelley points out the shadowy figures to Chelsea, and Chelsea's like, yeah, a wild animal. Imagine that. Wake me up if anything else exciting happens. And she stumbles back to bed. It's pretty obvious to Shelley that the monstrosity standing in their yard isn't properly registering in Chelsea's foggy head. Meanwhile, Eric is still downstairs by himself. He is totally kicking himself for not having his guns with him. Not being the provider for his family, it's been really tough on him. That's not the kind of guy he is. But now, not having anything with him to protect his family is just about more than he can bear. But the guns are in the locked barn, up in the loft, inside a locked box. Not helpful. So he's racking his brain trying to figure out what he can do to save his family. And he thinks maybe he can get the truck and back it up to the house so they can all run and get in and drive away. It'll be the longest 25 feet of his life to get to that truck, but he has to try. So he grabs his keys, opens the door, and starts sneaking out to the truck. Just as he gets there and gets his keys ready, the motion sensor light on the barn turns on, scaring the crap out of him, making him drop his keys. He bends over to pick them up, and when he stands back up, in the reflection of the truck window in front of him, he sees one of these creatures behind him. He turns to face it as the creature starts moving closer. And Eric thinks, this is it. I'm done. But when the creature puts its hand or paw on the fence to climb over, the light from the yard light shines on it and the creature quickly backs away. Seeing the only opportunity he's likely to get, Eric limps his way back to the house as fast as he can and hurries inside, slamming the door behind him. Shelley, who had no idea Eric had even left the house, loses her mind. Are you nuts? Not only did you leave us here alone, but you left the door open? What if something had happened to you? These things could have gotten in the house. And then what would we have done? Eric says, I'm so sorry, honey. I just feel so helpless. I had to do something. Not having any way to get away and knowing that they are in some real trouble, they decide to call the police. Yup, that went about as well as you can imagine. The 911 operator, thinking it's just a bear, tells them to call the game warden. The game warden just tells Shelley it's probably just a bear and to shut and lock all the doors and windows. And they'd be sure to come by in the morning and make sure everything's all right. Thank you very much. Okay, nobody's coming. They are on their own. Shelley heads back upstairs to Chelsea's room where she can see the whole front yard to try and keep an eye on these things. Eric is beside himself. It is his job to protect his family, and he can't do that. But then he remembers back to when he tried to get the truck, how the creature seemed to retreat from the light. Maybe the light hurt them somehow. That has to be the reason they didn't get him when they had the chance. And he thinks, maybe I can go outside, trip the sensor on the barn to turn on the light, and while it's on, run into the barn and get a gun. So Out the door he goes again, this time frantically waving his arms as he moves as fast as he can to get to the area of the motion sensor to get the light to turn on. By the time it does, Eric finds himself surrounded by these beasts. His only clear path is right back to the house. But he also knows that once he leaves that motion sensor area, it's only going to have a few seconds before it turns back off. And he's not moving real fast. He takes off as fast as he can, the pain in his back screaming at him with every step. And he barely makes it back to the porch before the light turns off and the beasts start running. And they are so fast that they almost catch up to him before he can make it in the door. Inside the house, Shelley can hear these creatures on the other side of the wall, rustling in the grass. They're out there, right next to the house. And they all know that if these things really want in, they're gonna get in. She can hear them making strange grunting, growling noises, almost as if they're talking to each other. The sounds are hard to describe, but Shelley says to her, they almost sounded demonic. And these creatures are so big and heavy that when they walk, Eric and Shelley can feel the vibration through the ground. So they know these things are just hanging out, waiting for them. Shelley finally wakes Chelsea. Get up. We need you awake and ready. All hands on deck. They all huddle up in the master bedroom and wait. By about 1:30 a.m., they try settling down to get some sleep, but that is not easy to come by. Needless to say, they all breathe a collective sigh of relief when daylight starts streaming in the bedroom window. Cautiously looking out the windows, because they are only hoping that daylight will chase them away, looks as if they're gone. However, they can still see areas in the grass where the dew has been disturbed. Something was out there. They're not crazy. Eric calls Sean to come over, and the two of them circle the house looking for tracks, which they find in spades. Tracks of a creature with huge claws walking on two legs. So what were these things that terrorized the Martin family that night?
I don't know what we saw. And if I was to say, I would be guessing.
I have no idea. I can't answer that for you.
I just hadn't seen anything like it. I have no idea.
Obviously, the chances that we'll ever find out are slim to none. But as crazy as that whole encounter was, that's not even the whole story. Turns out it might have something to do with the property itself, as opposed to just a pack of weird canine creatures running around. Unbeknownst to Shelley, Eric starts seeing something almost as soon as they move in. He sees this little girl, maybe 10, 12 years old, with dark brown hair in braids, wearing old clothes and leather boots that lace up. She looks pretty raggedy overall and very unhappy, almost mean looking. And she always looks like she has no idea that Eric is even there. Sometimes he sees her in the house, sometimes he sees her outside, and occasionally he hears her going up the stairs. But he doesn't really think much of it. He can handle a little ghost girl. However, one night they're sleeping in bed with their two dogs at the foot of the bed on the floor on their cushy dog beds, when something slaps Shelley's foot. And it's a pretty good slap. Shelley sits up, turns on the light, and scooches to the end of the bed to check if the dogs are there. She's thinking maybe one of them had jumped up on the bed and then decided to jump back down and brush against her foot along the way. But the dogs aren't there. She looks around and finds them both curled up together, fast asleep, in the space between Eric's side of the bed and the wall. Now, from the beginning, Eric and Shelley were renting the farmhouse and were already looking for a more permanent location. So when the dogman standoff happens, that's just the fire they need to start looking for a new house a little harder, and they move out soon after. which of course means new people move in, probably several over the years. In October of 2023, DJs Jason Stewart and Corey Skull spend part of their morning show on the I-95 radio station out of Bangor, Maine, talking about the stories of werewolves in Maine and the Palmyra wolves story, when a listener by the name of Justin calls in with his story of living in the same farmhouse for 2 years. His opinion? That house is pretty evil. He hears howling coming from the woods on occasion, but hey, Maine's got a pretty healthy coyote population, so not surprising. But things flying off of the shelves on a regular basis is. And that's not all.
I remember one time in specific that the door to the loft flew open in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., okay? Mm-hmm. Flew open, and of course, I woke up, and then I felt somebody slap the pillow next to my head. I felt the wind go by in my face.
Justin's not the only one to get a dose of these phantom hijinks. His wife gets a taste too, while just trying to do the laundry. Broad
daylight, there was 2 laundry baskets, one on top of the washing machine, one on top of the dryer. They flew off they flew off the washer and dryer, but I'm not like tip over. They like moved vertically and then dropped.
And they both wake up one night to see a man and a woman in 1800s period clothing standing at the foot of their bed. Nope, 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 nope. So what do you think? Are the Palmyra wolves actual physical creatures of this world? Is that den that Nathan and Chelsea found where these things actually live? Were they hunting the Martin family like they would hunt a deer? Or is everything, the light show in the forest, the otherworldly beasts, the unhappy, mischievous specters, all tied together by some force connected to that house or that land? Now, just a note on the research for this episode. If any of you have heard this account in other places, you might notice that this one is a little different. And that's because I found myself with 2 competing versions of the events from 2 different sources. Linda Godfrey's book, Real Wolfmen, and the Sci-Fi Channel's episode of their series Paranormal Witness that chronicles this event. I also found this post from Shelley herself talking about how Linda had her read what she'd written to fact check everything before her book was published. So that sounds like it should be the true account of events, right? Shelley also mentioned that she was surprised at some of the creative liberties taken by the producers of Paranormal Witness in retelling her family's encounter. Okay, so I tried to lean more heavily on the account in Linda's book. However, the Sci-Fi Channel also has a page containing the transcript of an interview with Shelley, and her interview doesn't exactly match the details in Linda's book. So I did my best to decipher the events and produce an amalgam from all sources. So, what does Shelley have to say about what happened to her and her family that night? It has made me realize that there are things out there we simply don't know about and don't consider. I do not believe these beasts were completely of this world, and it still haunts me regarding what they wanted from us all. Unlike some who think having an encounter similar to ours would be exciting and fantastic, I caution those people to please be careful what you wish for. Wow. This case is one of the reasons I am coming around to the idea that upright canines are living among us. I mean, here's this entire family risking their reputations just to let everyone know that these things are out there. Considering their extraordinary experience, I wish them nothing but happiness and peace in the future. If you would like to dive into another encounter from someone else working hard to get the truth out about these beasts, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.